Welcome to the recap show on the Baseball Awakening podcast with Geoff Rottmayer. Today we will discuss the lessons learned and the action items from yesterday's interview.
I love this conversation with Walter, and this is the type of conversation that I have with parents, and it was nice to hear his perspective. The baseball industry is something else. The culture that some of these kids and, that some of these parents, the things that they fall for, it's leaving a lot of people frustrated, and wasting time and money and effort that they put into something that they think is going to produce a result, which is why there's a need for a service like what Walter does. I offer this type of service as well, and a lot of guys out there as well, but I refer to Walter because he's been at it a very long time and does a really good job at it. When I was doing my research, preparing for this conversation, obviously the first thing you do is go visit the website. And that's where I came up with my first question. It's about the saying that he had. As soon as you go to his homepage, he talks about, how watching the player walk out to the field, how they warm up, how they interact, and how all that stuff with enough information to tell him how committed a guy is. And this is a conversation that you have with kids because they need to realize that they're being watched all the time. And because they're being watched, a lot of them just are not aware of what they are doing. They're not aware of the perception that they're getting off. Because the perception that they give off might not be the reality, but perception matters. So if you have a bad day of school, if you got into a fight with your parents, or you broke up with your girlfriend, and that's going to show up on the field if you bring it to the field. And the coaches are going to see that. And if it's their first time seeing you, then their first impression is this guy maybe doesn't really want to be here. So you gotta understand that perception matters. They're going to be able to find out a lot about you before the game ever even starts. And a lot of times they won't even watch the game, So whenever something happens, when it comes to the game of baseball, you never know who's watching. So that's why you got to leave everything on the bus. You got to leave everything in the clubhouse. As soon as that uniform comes on, everything goes away, and now you're just getting ready to play some baseball. You're bringing some energy. You're showing that you want to be there. You're pumping guys up, and you're doing everything you got to do to be able to help your team win a baseball game. But to dive a little bit more into the whole perception thing, one of the things that kids are not aware of is their body language, what they do, and then they need awareness of this. So this is where we have to sit down with the kid, and I do this quite a bit. I sit down with them and say, look, here's the perception that you're giving off. That may not be the case, but that is the perception. So if a coach is watching you, then this is what he's going to kind of think, and you're not picking on the kid, and let him know that. Let him know you're not picking on him. You're just trying to help him understand self-awareness in what he's giving off. Because the perception, again, the first time they see you, that perception matters. And again, it may not be what you're really feeling or what you're thinking or anything like that, but that's what you're giving off. So the awareness, these kids need that. The kids need to be aware of when they're hanging their head, or when their body language is showing frustration or adversity, all that type of stuff. They need awareness of that stuff. So this is an important part, especially if a kid comes to you and say, hey, I want to play college baseball, maybe even pro ball. This is something that you have to have a real conversation about, is your presentation when you show up matters. Okay. So you got to give off this energy. You got to give off this focus that you want to be there. That's the thing that's got to run into your mind all the time, that you never know who's there. All it takes is one person. All it takes is one person to see you and like you and take a chance on you. So maybe that one person is sitting there on the day that's not your best day, or the day you broke up with your girlfriend or whatever. You show up that day and he doesn't even know that. That's the guy. That's what you want. That's the hard part. This game's hard, and it's harder as you go up and down the ladder. So it's not really a game where you can fake it and make it. Fake it until you make it. That's the saying. Fake it until you make it. This is a really hard game to do that with. Now, I do believe you can act, but at the end of the day, if you understand your big picture and your why, then the game should be what the game is. So, but a lot of kids are not taught that, or brought awareness of that. So at the very least, just let him know what he's doing out there, so that he can be aware and make the changes and make sure that the perception is what it is. And that's got to start young, because that stuff isn't going to happen overnight. Now, these guys understand that they're kids. They understand that they're going to show some body language. They're going to show some frustration, but it's something that they gotta be aware of, and hopefully they get better at as they mature. So we continued to talk in our conversation. We went on and I asked about the college recruiting process and how the camp and the showcases and the website are leading a lot of players into believing that they're kind of being recruited, and a lot are falling into the trap. And this thing costs them money, time, and frustration. I love when Walter went on to say, parents are being led to believe that there's kind of a straight line between the high school coaches, the college coaches, and the pro ball, and how nothing could be further from the truth. And then he went on to say, if you would ever attend a national showcase, one of the bigger ones, those email lists get sold to college programs, and they will send these emails out to anyone, regardless of where they live. The assumption is that if you paid for one event, especially a larger one, that you have the income to attend other showcases and other camps. But understand that this does not mean that you're being recruited. It simply means that they want you to come to their camp, and maybe some false hope that you can draw some attention. And I always advise parents, when you get these letters, because you're going to get them, you're going to get these emails, is to write a letter back or write an email back asking them, where do you fit in their recruiting chart? And then whether you are being considered for a scholarship. And now you can get an idea of, whether it's a generic email sent to everyone, or if they indeed do have plans for you in their program. And I love what Walter said. He said he broke it down like this, and this is great, and I'm going to start using this when I talk to parents. This is some of the things that I've learned from this conversation. Was he explained it like this: the 90-10 rule, where he explained that let's just say there's 100 kids on the field, 90 of those players don't even pass the eye test. That means 10% does. And of those 10 players pass the eye test. And of those 10, maybe 2 are going to be considered above to elite student athletes. So that's crazy when you think about that. So he went on to say, if you don't have a skill set or tool that really sticks out and puts you way above the rest, and you don't have a plan academically, then it's not worth investing into these camps that are so generic. So that's crazy when you think about it. You go to a camp, and it's true when you think about it. You go to a camp with 100 kids there, 90% of them do not give them what they want. They're not there. They're not showing the coaches that they have what they need. And then the 10% that do pass the test, 2 of them are going to be considered above to elite. That's crazy. So understand that and understand what that means in terms of, investing your time and your money into different stuff like this. So we Walter was talking and he went a little bit deeper and he said, there are three things that you need to understand to be able to continue to play this game at a higher and higher level. One, especially the college level. Because one, you need the skill set. That's a given. You've got to have the skill. And I think most parents, most kids do not understand what exactly they need to improve on, which is why they need, someone like a Walter or someone like what we do or someone who can help you understand what they're looking for, because it's not such a straight line. It's not, you get this number and boom, you're there. Yes, having the numbers and stuff will get you into the door, but there's a lot of pieces to it, and that's the part that you need guidance on, is putting all the pieces together to make something happen. Okay. And then there's the academic excellence. A lot of kids don't realize that everything that you do in high school, it gets put on your transcript, and everything is going to stay on there. So that matters. And then the last thing you need is passion, so I asked him, I said, so let's dive into each one of these areas. And we started with the skills part. So I asked him, when did this whole process need to happen? And at what age? And then I love what he said. He said, travel ball, the real travel ball, not the competitive league where you're staying to read it, but travel ball where you're going to big time showcase events before the age of 14 is a waste of time. Now, the baseball culture will tell you otherwise, but there are a lot of parents that could save a lot of money just by understanding how these things work. And what makes a good investment and what doesn't. He said between the ages of 9 and 12, you want these kids to be kids and let them develop the passion for the game. You see kids around 13 years old. This is the biggest drop off, 13, 14 years old. You see these kids are dropping off, not wanting to play baseball anymore. And I think a lot of that has to go into the experiences that they have between the ages of 9 and 12. So this is the age that's going to dictate whether they want to continue to play. And if they're so serious right away, so serious, like a high school, college level type of competitiveness, or not so much competitiveness, but the how serious we are about everything, then that's going to take away some great experiences, and these guys may not want to play. So all that investment that you have between that age is going to kind of go away, and again, there's nothing wrong with that. If a kid doesn't want to play anymore, the kid doesn't want to play anymore. But most kids, when they're at 9, 12 years old, they want to be a big leaguer. They want to play pro ball. They're so excited about the game, and then you put them in an environment where it's too serious, too right away, and it's all about the winning instead of the playing, developing part and just having fun with my friends. You're really turning them off on, the game of baseball. So let them develop the passion for the game between 9 and 12. You're even shooting, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all those ages. Because he went on to say that between the ages of 13 to 14, this is where you need to go out, and find someone like a Walter, or find, there's lots of guys out there that do what he does, and, we do so as well. But find somebody like Walter, and I would refer to Walter because Walter is really good. But I would, between the ages of 13 to 14, you need to get an honest assessment, about where you are and about what level you could play at. And you need to find someone that's honest, and again, someone like Walter. Now, Walter is geographically located in the Boston area, up in that northeast part, but there's someone in every region. I mean, you can find them. You need to find someone that will be honest with you, and you got to accept that. And you got to find someone that will help you put together a plan to develop. You need to be in an environment that's based on a process, routines. And they need to learn to kind of go through the routine, this unsexy stuff, and allow them to improve. Be consistent in the routine. The routine will produce consistency. But it puts them in an environment like it is in college. In college, you're going to go to college, you're going to play pro ball, and you're going to do the same routine all the time. So if they start that process early, because routines can get kind of daunting, it's kind of boring. But the routine part is important for the consistency and the results. So I love the way Walter broke all this down. So I would go back and listen to this part of the conversation again, as I would the entire conversation that me and Walter had. So from there, I went on to ask him about the travel baseball and the culture of travel baseball and making sure that you're finding the right team, that matches your skill set versus playing for the biggest team with the biggest names and win all the games, and I love when he broke it down. He said, understand that the team with the biggest names might not be the right fit for your son and his current skill set, which will lead you to committing to a schedule that is not worth the time and investment that's going to take to play on the team. I love it. You got to understand that it's the Indy and not the arrow, as Walter said. The playing for a particular team or playing for a particular coach or wearing on a specific uniform, it's not going to magically take an average player and make him above average just by wearing his team or wearing his jersey. It doesn't work that way. You need to find a team that will help you or that's specific to your skill set. Or you need to, as Walter and I continue to talk about, you need to take that money and invest in the skill development part. Because what you're doing is, if you're not quite ready, the coaches know what they're looking for, and you go out there and you're not quite ready, then you're exposing yourself. And this is going to be your first impression. Okay? So you're better off taking that money that you would have spent in travel ball that you're not ready for and investing in training. And now you have something worth showing. So if you want to play college baseball, then the skill sets have to be there anyways. So it's a matter of, and there are lots of examples of guys spending a lot of money going to these events and they're not ready and they get nothing out of it. But there's also lots of examples of guys showing up. They only go when they have what the coaches are looking for. And when they show up and they have what the coaches look for, a lot of things happen very quickly. So you're better off waiting until you have something worth showcasing for. And then again, if you have something worth showcasing for, I've seen things with kids move very quickly. Okay. So, and again, you got the late bloomer type. Those late bloomer kids, they just pop out of nowhere. Things can happen very quickly when you say, hey, make sure you have the right, what the coaches are looking for. So, again, with this, my advice would be to connect with Walter or someone in your geographical region who can help you, who can teach you, who can preach the truth. Guys like myself in the, Tulsa region, or Oklahoma region. So find someone that can help you, that will give you the truth and help you understand what the process is like. And we went on, with Walter and I, we discussed, the importance of listening to the right people. There are things that you have to do, that you have to develop, that will make you a well-rounded player. So let's just use hitting. You have to be able to develop barrel control, and you've got to be able to get the ball or the barrel to the ball. And maybe that means you got to get a ground ball to move a runner over. Yes. In general sense, the goal is to get the ball up in the zone something that you can do damage with, something you can hit over the shortstop's head. But there does come a time where you got to get the ball on the ground. And I think it's dangerous that we tell kids that ground balls are bad. Again, that's not the goal. We want to drive the baseball, but there are times when we got to be able to get the ball on the ground, okay? There's a lot of people out there doing a lot of amazing work, but at the end of the day, we cannot rob what's going to help these kids advance in the game of baseball and help teams win baseball games. Yes, driving, getting a double, driving runners in, yes, I get it. But we still have to give these kids the ability to hit ground balls when needed and to be able to drive runners in, okay? This was, again, this was a conversation that I was really excited about. I highly recommend listening if you haven't listened, or if you have listened, re-listen, because there's just a lot of nuggets involved in this. Now, as we continue the conversation, I said, hey, let's get into the academic part. And this was some really good stuff in here. I even learned a few things, So what parents have to realize is full-ride scholarship for baseball is very, very rare. There are guys that have them, that have gotten them. And these guys are likely, guys who are first-round picks and the coaches are trying to steer them the college route. And again, not all the time, but it just know that a full-ride scholarship for baseball is very, very rare. And you have to understand that. So this is, a player will get more money typically from the academic side than they will the baseball side. So understand that the GPA and the test scores matter. Understand that everything you do in your high school career matters, and it will all be on your transcript. So understand too that there are 35 guys on a roster, and at the Division I level, they only have 11.7 scholarship to hand out. So when you have this conversation with parents, they're not always really aware of that. And it's important to understand the numbers game. And in the numbers game, I always tell, so there's 4 different numbers that I think, you have to really understand as parents. You have to understand the odds. What are the odds of being able to play college baseball? Because that number is very, very small. What are the scholarship, the academic numbers, and then the personal stat numbers? Think the numbers that you need to at least kind of get your foot in the door to get some interest. Okay? So those are the numbers that you have to really be aware of. And we can do another show on that another time. So again, I refer back to this conversation. This was in part 2 of this conversation where Walter kind of talked, in depth on the academic part of the process. And then lastly, we talked about passion and understanding, he's seen it firsthand. He's got a son that's in the big leagues. He saw the sacrifices that his son made, the things he had to give up to make sure he got his work in, to make sure he got his training in, to make sure he got his studies in. There's a lot more sacrifices than most people realize. And it's okay. If baseball is what you want to do, then you got to give up things, and it's okay that you don't like that. It's okay that you want more of a social life. But understand that if baseball is what you want to do, at the college level, at the lifestyle, man, you got scheduled, you have things you have to play, things you have to do, places you have to be for the baseball team. Okay. So understand that, yeah, you want to have the social life. The social life is important. It's important to unplug from baseball, but you need to understand that it takes a lot of work and a lot of passion to play this game at a higher level. And again, I would refer back to this conversation, part 2 of this conversation, where he talked about his son and the passion that he has for the game. So yeah, guys, this conversation was great. I think every parent needs to listen to it. It's just, there's just there's so much nuggets in here. You can save a lot of time, money, and frustration. So again, I would refer back to this conversation, part 1 and part 2. Don't forget part 2. A lot of guys would listen to part 1, but forget part 2. So don't forget part 2. But thank you for tuning in.